The narrow clavicle. Look at your collarbones. Those two horizontal pillars dictate the absolute limit of your silhouette before you even touch a barbell. In the world of aesthetics, this is the structural ceiling, and for many, it is a life sentence of mediocrity. The length of your clavicle is a fixed skeletal measurement, established long before you stepped into a squat rack. If your collarbones are short, your humerus is anchored closer to your midline. This isn't a muscular deficit, it's a hardware limitation. You can perform every lateral raise variation known to man, and you can pack inches of raw contractile tissue onto your medial deltoids, but you are fighting a losing battle against geometry. On a wide-framed individual, muscle mass spreads horizontally, creating the illusion of a vanishing waist. On you, that same muscle stacks vertically. Your shoulders don't spread, they hunch. No matter how much mass you add, your silhouette remains a vertical rectangle rather than a tapering V. You aren't lacking intensity, and you aren't lacking willpower. You are simply lacking the real estate to hang the muscle on. You are building a skyscraper on a narrow foundation. It will be tall and heavy, but it will never be wide hip. If the clavicles are the ceiling of your physique, the iliac crest is the anchor. We are talking about the high waist curse. Stand in front of a mirror and feel for the top of your hip bones. If those ridges sit wide and high, you are looking at a skeletal blueprint that is inherently hostile to the X-frame. The width of your pelvis is a non-negotiable metric of your anatomy. When the iliac crest is wide, the distance between your hips and your lower rib cage is often compressed, creating a boxy midsection that no amount of dieting can shrink. You could drop to 4% body fat and have skin like translucent paper, yet your waist will still appear thick. This isn't fat, it is bone. While those with a narrow pelvis enjoy the illusion of a tapering waist, even with mediocre back development, you are forced to play a game of extreme compensation. Your obliques, instead of being a crowning detail, often serve to widen the silhouette further, turning your torso into a solid, unyielding block. You are not bloated, and you aren't carrying water, you are simply cursed with a wide foundation. You aren't building a statue, you are trying to hide a fortress. The lat high rise. We move from the skeletal foundation to the first great deception of the muscular system, the wing gap. You've seen the lifters who look massive from the side, but the moment they spread their back, something feels off. The V-taper doesn't flow into the waist, it stops abruptly at the mid-rib cage. This is the lat high rise, and it is a masterpiece of biological inefficiency. The aesthetic flow of a back depends entirely on where the latissimus dorsi fibers insert into the thoracolumbar fascia. If your Dina dictated a high insertion point, your lats are anchored high up under your armpits. This creates a winged effect where the muscle bellies are short and bunched toward the top of the torso. You can do thousands of repetitions of heavy rows and weighted pull-ups, and while those muscle bellies will grow thicker and wider, they will never grow lower. You cannot force muscle fibers to migrate down your spine. This creates a massive aesthetic void in the lower back and lumbar region. While a low lat genetically gifted lifter has muscle that flows all the way down to the top of the hip, creating a seamless X-frame, you are left with a high shelf look. From the back, you appear to have a massive upper body perched on top of a thin, narrow stick. No amount of lower lat specialized training can bridge a gap where there is no contractile tissue to begin with. You are essentially building a parachute that refuses to open all the way. The sternal void. We move to the most visible death sentence in the world of aesthetics, the pec gap. You can possess the heaviest bench press in your gym and shoulders that look like cannonballs, but the moment you take off your shirt, the illusion shatters. In the center of your chest, where there should be a thick, seamless valley of muscle, there is a hollow, bony canyon. This is the sternal void, and it is the ultimate proof that you cannot outwork your attachments. The pectoralis major is divided into segments, but its overall shape is dictated by where those fibers originate along the sternum. If your Dina programmed your pec fibers to attach half an inch or even an inch away from the midline, that space is occupied by nothing but bone and tendon. This is not a weak point you can fix with cable flies or close grip presses. There is no such thing as an inner chest muscle that you haven't discovered yet. There is only the muscle you were born with. While the genetically elite have pecs that meet in the middle, creating a deep vertical line of shadows, you are left with a ribcage window. No amount of hypertrophy can force muscle tissue to grow over a region where there is no anatomical anchor. As the muscle bellies grow larger, the gap often becomes even more pronounced as the outer mass pulls away from the center. You are building two massive walls with no bridge to connect them. The abdominal chaos. We descend to the midsection, where symmetry is the only currency that matters. You've been sold the fantasy of the perfect ladder, two parallel rows of evenly spaced razor-sharp blocks. But for many, the reality is a jagged, asymmetrical mess. This is the abdominal chaos, a geometric nightmare written into your connective tissue before you were even born. The six-pack look is created by tendinous intersections, bands of connective tissue that cross the rectus abdominis. These bands are like physical straps cinching down a pillar. pillow. If your DNet dictated that these straps be staggered, slanted, or widely spaced, that is how they will stay. You can perform every crunch, leg raise, and vacuum exercise in existence, but you cannot realign your tendons. This creates the rift, a vertical or horizontal void where the muscle segments simply refuse to meet. While a symmetrical lifter looks like a finished puzzle, your midsection looks like a scrambled deck of cards. One side sits higher than the other, a gap wide enough for a finger sits between the top and bottom rows. You aren't holding fat in those gaps, and your core isn't weak. You are simply a victim of a biological zigzag. In the game of aesthetics, you aren't lacking a six-pack, you are lacking the blueprint for order, the bicep trench. We conclude with the short peak sentence. You've seen them in every gym, lifters with massive bulging arms that seem to vanish the moment they relax. This is the bicep trench, a curse defined by the length of your muscle belly versus the length of your tendon. If you can fit 2, 3, or even 4 fingers between the end of your bicep and your elbow crease, you have a long distal bicep tendon. This is a mechanical trade-off. A shorter muscle belly often results in a higher, more dramatic peak when flexed, but it comes at the cost of total arm density. From the side, your arm looks hollow, unfinished, and disconnected from your forearm. The harsh reality is that muscle cannot be stretched toward the joint. No amount of preacher curls, hammer curls, or lengthening movements will migrate those muscle fibers down toward your elbow. You are effectively missing the lower third of your arm's potential mass because there is simply no contractile tissue there to grow. While the genetically gifted enjoy a seamless transition from shoulder to wrist, you are left with a trench, a literal gap where muscle should be, but tendon reigns supreme. You aren't small, you are just anatomically incomplete.